Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Perfectly Imperfect podcast. I'm your host, Jenny Minnie, and thank you so much for tuning into this episode today. I am back in New York City. It feels like I spent a long time away, although it was only about 2 months, but it feels so good to be back. But it is a short trip back, and I want to get into that. I want to do a quick life update at the beginning of this episode because I feel like I've had so much going on in my mind and in my brain, and I've wanted to share, but I haven't known how. And I feel like I kind of touched on it in my last episode of like how I want to keep showing up. But my perfectionism, you guys, has just like been all consuming me recently. My perfectionism is overtaking my ability to just manage my time and work and do content, and I don't know. It's just kind of been making it really, really difficult to even like make daily decisions because I just feel like I have to keep weighing all the options until I find the perfect option, until it feels right. I've had a lot of ruminating thoughts and just kind of stuck in how to move on from things because if it doesn't feel perfect, I don't know how to move on. All of that I just like didn't want to share, but I'm challenging myself to share it because I know that there's someone out there listening who can relate to this, and it's a hard kind of feeling to be in because it's not even like I'm trying to be like someone else or I'm comparing my life to someone else. I'm literally just being so competitive with myself and thinking that I'm never doing the right thing and that I just need to be perfect in everything I do and show up without any flaws, show up without any ruffles and with a clear plan. That's just not realistic. And it's not realistic for myself. And rationally, I know that. But recently, my brain has just been like, nope, don't do that, don't do that, don't share that, don't share that. You don't want to be perceived in that way. And so I've been finding that I've been really afraid of being perceived, and therefore just not really posting much or sharing much, and kind of sharing, the easy things and the comforting things and the happy things. But I don't know. I don't feel authentic right now, especially on Instagram. I'm mostly talking about Instagram. YouTube, I have been trying to get my videos edited, but honestly, when I'm in these mindsets, and especially when my perfectionism is coming into play, YouTube videos take me like 3 times longer to do. I don't know why this has turned into a sort of like somewhat of a social media rant, but I guess I've just had all these thoughts that I wanted to share with you all, but my rant will be over soon. Anyway, last thing I want to say on this element of my perfectionism with social media is that when I'm in these sort of kind of loops and ruts with my perfectionism, I just struggle to think that any idea is a good idea. And then if I work on an idea, I take way too long and I go way overboard on the editing and I rewatch it and it takes me so long. And so now my anxiety kind of comes in and is like, oh my God, it's going to take us so long, we shouldn't even start. So that's kind of where I'm at with my ability to like create content. So yeah, I just want to start sort of being more vulnerable and connect back to why I started this podcast, why I started sharing my life on social media, and the joy that it brings me. The joy that it brings me is connecting with you all, sharing my experiences, and you guys feeling heard and seen and loved in these experiences and feeling less alone overall. And I've just been really struggling to validate my own emotions and validate my experiences and the way I react to things. And I think because I haven't been validating it for myself, I don't feel I've been in a position to, share these things. But I know there is so much power in vulnerability, and there's so much power in sharing your story and putting your voice out there. And I am so grateful to have experienced some of the power of that and the way that it reflects back to you when you put that out in the world. It was reflected back to you by those around you, and I just love that this is a space that I've created that's safe for myself and safe for all of you, and I've been able to connect with people all over the world. I guess I just want to take a moment to say thank you, and that you are certainly not alone if you're going through things right now, if you're going through things similar to what I am. But let's move on to a quick sort of less emotional update. So I'm in New York City now, back in my lovely apartment. I got here at the beginning of August, and I'm leaving in about a week from now, from when I'm recording this at the end of August. I'm leaving my apartment. I'm putting my furniture and everything into a storage unit, and I am moving in with my mom in Massachusetts, just outside Boston, which I'm excited but a little bit nervous about. I grew up in the town that she lives in. It's my hometown, but I don't feel like I fit in my hometown anymore, and I feel like I've been loving the lifestyle and curating my life here in New York. And before, when I was in college in Boston, I just learned to really love and feel so inspired and sort of feed off of the energy of these cities, whether that be Boston or New York. And equally, I felt that in Paris this past summer. So going to a very small little coastal town in Massachusetts where I have to drive everywhere is just so different. But it is a temporary situation. I will be there for a few months, and then my next stop is actually Paris. I am so excited to be spending more time there. As of right now, I'm planning to spend maybe 3 months there in the winter. And you might be thinking, like, why would you go to Paris in the winter? I've thought the same thing, but my justification is that if I really want to see what living in Paris is like, I can't just go in the pretty months of spring and summer. I feel like I want to see a well-rounded image of what life in Paris would be like, and so I have to go see it in the fall and the winter. But I am applying for my visa, so hopefully if I get my long stay visa, I'll be able to stay there for a year, which is the goal. Maybe a little less than a year, but I'll figure out that when I get there. But that is my tentative plan right now. So I'm saying see you soon to New York next week. It's not a goodbye. It's a see you later, a see you soon, because I definitely see myself coming back to this city. I mean, who knows? I'm saying that now. I may fall even deeper in love with Paris and want to stay there for the rest of my life. Who knows? But there's just a lot of change going on. And now this is leading into today's topic of today's episode. Today, I wanted to talk about this experience that I've been experiencing a lot recently, and honestly have been over the last few years of my life. I think ever since quarantine ended, really, I've just had this feeling of wanting change all the time, but equally wanting stability. And so I wanted to talk through that today about what to do when you also feel this way, and that you constantly crave change and you want new environments and you're excited by meeting new people and doing new things, but equally you crave stability and structure and consistency. And they are inherently opposites, yet they can definitely coexist. And I just wanted to share some pointers and thoughts that I have been having on this topic that have been able to help me, and that may be able to help you if you are trying to navigate similar situations where there's a lot of change happening and you're wanting to find stability, or the opposite, maybe you have a lot of stability right now and you want to add some more change into it. Let's get into this topic. The first thing that came to mind when I thought about what to do when you constantly want change but you also want stability is to redefine and really clarify your values for yourself. I don't know if this is something I've talked about, but this is something I've really been working on a lot with my therapist, is just really defining and structuring out my values. I did this at the beginning of the year, at the beginning of 2025. She gave me a list of values, which actually is Brene Brown's Dare to Lead, I believe. I'll link it down below, but she has a PDF printout basically of just a bunch of words that could be potential values, and I used that, and I think it was a great resource to start kind of jogging my mind of what my values could be, because it's kind of hard, I guess it was for me at least, to sort of think out of thin air what my values are. I mean, definitely some words came to mind, but being able to see a list of what potentially values could be was really, really helpful. And then I was able to read through and be like, oh yeah, that resonates with me. That doesn't resonate with me. Oh, I really like that one. And then some were like, oh, maybe at times, maybe not. So it just made me think a little bit more. So really getting clear on your values. I feel like this is also just a great practice to do any time of the year. I did it at the beginning of the year just because that sort of was something I needed to do, and in my journey and in my healing, and it really helped, and my therapist brought it up. But I've since like done this with myself, I think twice now throughout the year. And when I just got back from England in middle of July, I got back from such a wonderful trip where I had learned so much about myself and had so many wonderful moments. But I was suddenly just so incredibly anxious for the future, and I couldn't stop trying to plan. And I would just like think and plan and try to look at what apartments and where in Paris, if I want to stay in New York, and if I want to stay with my mom, and if I want to go to Paris, like when, and coordinating all of these. Like there was just so many thoughts, and I just was like so overwhelmed. And I was like, right, I need to just come back to myself, ground myself in my values, and hopefully that can help me start to clarify a little bit more about what direction is most aligned with me. Because what's been going on right now, just this cloud of options and thoughts and worries and doubts and shoulds and coulds and what ifs, that was getting me absolutely nowhere. And that gets you absolutely nowhere. And it's very hard to take steps forward and make decisions that really align to you when you're in that state of mind. And I was listening to one of my favorite podcasts, The Psychology of Your 20s with Gemma, and she was talking about this same practice of kind of grounding yourselves and coming back to defining your values. And she talked about your values like a compass, and that's exactly what they are. They really just help you navigate and point you in the right direction. And without your values, you're going to be completely lost. They are a wonderful and incredible starting point, especially for when making big life decisions, but it also could be small life decisions. And I think every single human being needs to know their values and needs to sort of have this identity with certain aspects of life and know what resonates with them and what doesn't. I know that there was a time where I didn't know my values, and I didn't think about my values, and I didn't know that that was something that I needed. But then once I was sort of given the opportunity and came to the realization that this is something that I need for myself, and I didn't have a compass for so long. And it doesn't mean I'm always on track and that I'm always living according to my values every single day. But in moments like this, and this phase of my life that feels very consuming and very confusing and very all over the place, grounding myself in my values has been incredibly helpful. And like I said, it didn't answer all the questions. It doesn't provide all the solutions, but it's a starting point, especially when you don't know where to start or what first step to take. This practice for me looks like going to that list of values, or, if you want to come up with it on your own, I recommend writing down like 5 to 10 values that feel like really resonate with you. And then after making this list of values, I love to do some journal prompts afterwards, just to sort of check in with myself and really start to identify where in my life am I living according to my values, and where in my life am I maybe compromising some values, and how can I sort of set the balance in the best way for myself. Some of these prompts could be something like, which habits or daily actions feel aligned with your values that you're already doing already? What habits or daily actions feel misaligned with your values? And what steps could you take to address this misalignment? Another one could be like, imagine you're living your ideal life. What values are you prioritizing every single day? And so questions like that really just sort of get you to think about where in your life are you living in accordance to your values. And this is also a great time to just give yourself credit and pat yourself on the back that you are not that far off from your values than you might think you are. At least that's in my situation. I felt that way a lot. Like, I'm not doing anything that I want in life, but like, actually, no, I have to give myself credit that I am, and I've gotten myself places, and I'm living in accordance with so many of my values. Applaud yourself and recognize that you have made a lot of growth, and you are taking steps that are going in the best direction for you. And that's something to feel proud of yourself over. And there are going to be times where your values may be compromised, but there is always something you can do about it, and trust in yourself that you will do something about it when the time is right, and that you will be able to sort of get yourself through that period of misalignment, however long it may be. So that was a very long first point, but something to do when you feel like you want a lot of change, but you also want stability, is to just check in with your values and see where you're at, level set yourself with yourself. The second point that came to mind when I was thinking about this is that it doesn't have to be all or nothing. Like most things in life, we don't live in black and white. There's not always a right and a wrong. There is so much gray area. And same with this kind of thing. If you want a lot of change, but you also want stability, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. I definitely catch myself thinking in these all or nothing mindsets, thinking I need to change everything in my life. Even if I want just to change one thing, I have to do it all at once, or it's not like worth it. I don't believe that, and that's just not the truth. Your change and your desires and your desire to change is valid no matter how big or how small. And you are allowed to make gradual change. You're allowed to take tiny, tiny, tiny steps every day if that's what is going to enable you to take the right steps in the right direction for you. Yes, there may be people who quit their job, move to a new city, break up with their partner, and start a whole new life and redefine themselves all at once. But then there's also people who make those tiny, small, incremental changes every single day, and they might get to the exact same point in a very different timeline, but you're both there where you need to be ultimately. And so this is something I've also been really grounding myself in, this mindset of you don't have to change everything all at once. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. You don't have to completely compromise your stability if you do want change. And equally, you don't have to compromise your change if you want stability. You can still feel stable and in control of your life and of what you're doing. And, maybe there's external factors that don't allow you to make these big drastic changes all at once. But that doesn't mean you can't get to where you want to be and you can't make those changes in your life. It just may look different than maybe how you were thinking it would be. And that's completely okay. Kind of following up on that, my third point of what to do in these situations is that if the change is feeling overwhelming and there's something you want to do, something you want to achieve, something you want to take more steps towards, but it's feeling really overwhelming and you don't know where to start. One, I would say, get in touch with your values, see if you can realign that compass for yourself. But two, I would also say, make a list of concrete steps to do, even if they're small. So for me, for example, I knew that I wanted to get back to Paris somehow. I didn't know when, and I didn't know how, and I didn't know how it would align with my lease here in New York and financially and job and everything. And it was just feeling very overwhelming. And I had thoughts of, well, just change everything. Just leave everything. Just do it right now, all at once, and be rash and just do it. Sure, I could have leaned into that, but I realized that did not align with my value of stability, which is something that I value very, very much, but I equally value freedom and independence. So I knew that I didn't want to compromise my stability all at once. So I made a list of concrete things, concrete steps, even no matter how small they were, just to make me realize and recognize that I'm taking steps forward, even if they're small. So for me, that was like looking at apartments in Paris and looking into how to book my visa. And it was contacting my landlord here about moving out. It's just like, break it down into small concrete steps that you do one at a time. And I didn't do all these things on the same day as well. It was over many, many days. One day it was emailing the movers back about when they were going to put my stuff in storage. And then the next day it was researching what documents and what things I'd need for my French visa. Just breaking it down into small steps really, really helps. And then falling off of that one, oppositely, if the stability is feeling repetitive and if your stability is feeling overwhelming and kind of you feel like you're struggling to feel excitement and difference and change in your day-to-day routine, make a list of ways to romanticize your life, and maybe a list of new things to do in your area, or just ways that you can bring a little bit more interest and excitement into your routine. So again, we're not engaging with the all or nothing thinking of, I feel too stable and too bored in my routine, I'm going to change my entire life completely. And that might be what you're thinking. And I've definitely had moments of that where I feel very consistent in my routine. That's not my current chapter of life right now, but in past chapters of my life, I've had moments where I'm kind of doing the same thing every day. I'm in a good routine. And then suddenly I'll wake up and be like, oh my God, I've been doing the same thing. I have to change everything all at once. But no, you don't have to. And you can find small, sustainable ways to romanticize and bring excitement back into your routine. And that maybe that's the level of change that is right for you at that moment. So you're not completely sacrificing your stability. So whether that be find some new restaurants in your area that you want to try. Is there a new park you want to go to? A new hike nearby that you want to do? Is there a person that you've been meaning to reach out to? Like, write their name on the list. Call this person. Is there maybe, I don't know, a blank wall in your apartment that you could put a new painting up? Is there a craft, a DIY project that you could pick up and do? Is there new classes or a new course that you could be taking in your area? Like, just try to find and think of new ways to incorporate little new things into your routine that don't shake it up so much to the point that you are then overwhelmed by how much change is going on. So this is really just all finding ways to live in the gray area and not feel like you need to be living in these extremes all the time. And I know it can be difficult. It's definitely difficult for me, but the more comfortable that we get with these sort of natural ebbs and flows of life and natural ebbs and flows of our energy, I feel like the more aligned and authentic we will be able to feel and live our lives. The fifth point that came to mind when you want change, but you also want stability, if the change feels right, but the change feels scary, know that it probably is still a good step for you. If you have an itch to do something, if you have an itch to change something, but that change feels scary because maybe what you've been doing feels comfortable. It feels easy, it feels normal, it feels natural, but you've realized that it doesn't quite align with who you are, and it doesn't, or maybe it doesn't align with who you want to be in the future. And all I have to say to this is there's no time like the present. There really is no time like the present. Nothing is guaranteed beyond the present. And so if you notice that you want to make a change, but it feels uncomfortable and it feels scary, I challenge you to really go for it. And I've been doing the exact same practice with myself. This change of moving to Paris has felt incredibly scary and incredibly overwhelming. I only spent 6 weeks there this summer, and I don't speak the language. I know a few people there now, which I'm so grateful for, but I don't have my community there. It's far from my family here in the States. It's far from my friends here. It's far from my boyfriend. It's far from people that I love. But I have this itch, and I knew deep down this was something that I wanted to see through. And this was a challenge and a change that I knew was stepping in the right direction according to my compass, according to my values. If you feel this itch and it feels scary and it feels overwhelming and you don't know where to start writing it down, start making a plan for yourself. And you might realize that it's a lot more within your reach than you might have thought. Or you might realize that there are actually a lot of steps and it's not going to be an easy change. But once you make that plan and you feel excited and you feel like, wow, this is the direction I want to be going, then that'll be your motivation to work through that. And also I want to add to this point is that if you decide to make a change or you make a plan and you start taking steps toward a new endeavor, a new change, and then you suddenly realize it isn't what you thought it was and that you don't feel the way that you thought you might have, there is nothing wrong with that. You have not done anything wrong. All you did is act on an itch to change something about your life, and you made a decision based on the information and the knowledge you had at that time, and you went for it. And that is something to be so, so incredibly proud of yourself for. If in the end you realize, wait a second, I need to, pivot to the left, pivot to the right, I need to maybe take a few steps back, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And I'm saying this as a reminder to you, and I'm also saying this as a reminder to myself, because especially with perfectionism and perfectionist tendencies, this idea that you can change your mind and this idea that you can reverse your decisions is not a comfortable idea, because to someone with perfectionism, we want to know that the decision we're making is perfect and it's never going to change, it's never going to be wrong, and that, we don't want to be seen making the wrong decision either. And so it's really, really scary to admit to ourselves if we've made a wrong decision, but it's so, so incredibly important. And that's, coming back to your compass of your values will help you realize those things as well, so that you don't keep making these steps because you quote unquote told yourself you should, only to then realize once you finish your list of steps, you don't feel any better or any more aligned with yourself than you did before. So that's just a point I wanted to put in there as well, is that you're allowed to change your mind, you're allowed to pivot, you're allowed to change directions, and there's nothing wrong with that. My last point that came to mind when I thought of what to do when you want change but you also want stability is to remember that life has seasons. We all have chapters, we have different phases of life. Some moments of life are going to be very busy and very hectic and full of lots of change and here and there and moving and transitioning. And then there's going to be periods of life where things are more stable, things are more consistent, maybe things are slower, and both are equally needed as much as the other. So if you're in a season of change, or if you're in a season of stability, or if you feel like you're in a season of a bit of navigating the both, know that it's not permanent. Whether you want it to be permanent or not, life is inherently not permanent at all. You can't expect yourself to show up the same throughout every single chapter of your life. We are inherently changing and evolving beings in a changing and an evolving world. So nothing is going to be the same today as it was yesterday. And that's something that I feel like for a long time brought me a lot of anxiety, and still does in certain moments. And I compare myself to my past self thinking, oh, if I was just like I was before, life would be fine and I would have no stress. But that is just not the case. And instead of thinking that way, I'm shifting my inner dialogue to, I'm so grateful for all the growth and the change that I've experienced. I'm a few more steps closer to knowing who I am truly and authentically and fully. And I wouldn't have been able to get here if it weren't for the different changes and the different chapters and the different phases and the different levels of stability that I had in my past. If it was all the same from my past up until now, I mean, like, that's not life. I hope you get what I'm saying here, is that there are chapters and nothing is permanent. So if you're in a chapter that you aren't loving, know that there is a better chapter coming for you. And if you're in a chapter that you're absolutely loving, know that there may be an even better chapter for you, or a different chapter coming up, or something that you didn't even know that you needed might be right on the other side of that page. So I want to close this episode with this idea of what's guaranteed. And personally, I've struggled a lot with this idea, and as someone with anxiety, I want to know what will happen and what the outcome will be and what all the options that could happen are. But oftentimes in life, you just can't know that. We just can't know what's going to happen on the other side. We can't know what that next chapter is for us at times. At many times we are in control of that. Like, I'm in control of, I'm going to Paris. I know that I'm going to be doing that and being there, but I don't know what's going to happen when I get there. Literally anything can happen, and I can run through all the different options, but nothing is guaranteed. But I want to say and leave you with something that has been bringing me so much peace when I find myself getting anxious about the lack of a guarantee of knowing what's on the other side of this change, is that growth is guaranteed. Growth is guaranteed through every change and every chapter of life. that is something that, like I said, has been bringing me so much peace, because when I get caught up in the fear of this change, of the what ifs, what if it doesn't go well, what if I fail, what if I can't do it, something that brought me a lot of peace is this idea that I'm guaranteed to grow on the other side. Whether that means growing to learn that that was not a right decision for me and I never want to do that again, or the other side of growing and loving the opportunity and loving the experience and loving that I made that decision for myself, and therefore learning that, hey, these are things that are important to me, and maybe adding those to my list of values. So either way, you're going to learn something about yourself. Either way, you're going to grow. Either way, you're going to get to know yourself on a deeper level. So I hope this episode brought you some comfort in knowing that you can navigate these different chapters of life, whether that be chapters of change, chapters of stability, and wanting to have both in life. Like everything, I know it's cliche, it's all about balance, and you can't go too long with too much change without some stability, and you can't go too long with too much stability without change. And finding that happy medium, finding that gray area for yourself is going to be very unique to you. No one can give you that answer. No one can define that for you. That's something that you have to find and define for yourself. And that can be a long journey. And I'm very much on the journey with you if you're doing the same. And know that you will get there, but also know that it will change over time. Maybe you want a lot of change right now, like me, and you want to be moving and you want to be in different places. And at times you wish you had more stability, but ultimately you know that this change in this chapter of life is what's right for you. Or maybe you're in a chapter of slowing down, of more stability, of less change and less moving around, less transitioning. And both are beautiful, both are wonderful, and both are needed. And so I hope that this episode has found you well, and I hope that you feel a little less alone if you are too someone who always wants change but always wants stability and struggles to see a reality where both exist. It's tough to navigate, and you're not alone in that, like I said, but it is more than possible. Thank you so much for listening today and listening to my little rambles at times. Please let me know if something resonated with you here. This is something I've been thinking about, but I wanted to challenge myself, like I was talking at the beginning of the episode, to just share and be vulnerable and share my thoughts. And I hope it has resonated. So if it has, I would love to hear what element of this podcast resonated with you. If you want to put it in the comments down below on Spotify, or if you don't feel like writing anything, please leave an emoji. Let's do the green heart emoji. Do the green heart emoji down below if you've listened this far into the episode. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks you so much for spending this time with me. And if you like the show, please follow it on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and you can subscribe to the YouTube channel. And please leave a star rating, and a written review as well would be so wonderful. So thank you again for being here, and I'll catch you in the next episode.